Buenas tardes, profe. Buenas tardes a todos. Les doy la cordial bienvenida a la clase de Teoría de la Adquisición de una segunda lengua para compartirles los parámetros de las secciones por videoconferencia. Las secciones se graban, pueden verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos y puedan activarlos cuando quieran hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Le pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirada la sección y le serán restados puntos en la autovaloración del docente. Mi rol como moderador es facilitar y apoyar en la parte técnica. Consultas por el chat personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sección que tiene una duración de 1 hora. Buenas tardes, profe, bienvenida.
Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. Okay, students, so welcome to this class, and today we're going to work with the module number 3, reading number 1 and number 2. Thanks to give thanks to God for everything that you received in your life and proposal. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up by Nelson Mandela. Okay, review of previous classes, cooperative learning strategies. Okay, so the process of cooperative learning involves students working together in small groups on a structured activity. The members of the group learn to work as a team to accomplish a specific goal, to solve a problem or to complete a project or to develop a product. And teachers hold students accountable individually, but also assess group work. Students are responsible not only for learning the material, but also for ensuring that the other members of the group learn the material too. Okay. Reading number 1, cooperative learning and collaborative learning. Cooperative learning is a specific kind of collaborative learning. In cooperative learning, students work together in small groups on structured activities. They are individually accountable for their work, and the work of the group as a whole is also assessed. Cooperative groups work face to face and learn to work as a team. Cooperative, in this case, about the collaborative. Collaborative learning is a method of teaching and learning in which students team together to explore a significant question or create meaningful projects. A group of students discussing a lecture or students from different schools working together over the internet on shared assignment are post examples of collaborative learning. Okay, so with this information, let me show the first video for the class, okay?
In the world of pedagogy,
In the world of pedagogy, a shift to constructivism has been long in the making. It is now virtually impossible to be associated with education in Western culture and not to have heard of names such as Dewey, Piaget, and Vygotsky. As constructionism is well accepted, I won't be dwelling on the benefits of it, but rather describing the difference between cooperative and collaborative learning. The terms collaborative learning and cooperative learning are sometimes used interchangeably. This is understandable as they are both based on small group, active student participation, over passive lecture-based teaching. The underlying premise for both collaborative and cooperative learning is founded in constructivist epistemology. First, knowledge is constructed, discovered, and transformed by students. Second, students actively construct their own knowledge. Learning is conceived of as something a learner does, not something that is done to the learner. Cooperative and collaborative learning in some cases are used interchangeably, but they are not the same. Cooperative learning can be considered a part of collaborative learning. It should be noted that collaboration is derived from its Latin root, focused on the process of working together, whereby the root word for cooperation stresses the product of such work. Collaboration is a philosophy of interaction and personal lifestyle, whereas cooperation is a structure of interaction designed to facilitate the accomplishment of an end product or goal. Effectively, in a classroom setting, the easiest way to differentiate between the two is that cooperative learning is teacher-centered, with group tasks usually more close-ended and often having specific answers. In contrast, collaborative learning is student-centered. Small groups are often given more open-minded, complex tasks, and the teacher is just a facilitator. With this distinction, the two must serve slightly different purposes. In practice, cooperative learning is more effective with foundational knowledge of earlier grades, while collaborative learning are more suitable for non-foundational knowledge of latter years, pushing students to draw their own conclusions. As such, the two approaches can be considered a linear path. One picks up where the other leaves off.
Okay, so it's important to remind us what is learning. Learning means acquiring experience, knowledge, skills, and values to understand what and how to do something by accumulating all the information gathered by us from various sources and them applying it. It is a process that shapes and defines an individual's personality, attitude, and behavior. Indeed, it tends to develop socially acceptable behavior in a person. Okay, so cooperative learning and collaborative learning are commonly used in group activities and to attain a common objective. So in the case of collaborative learning, it is the student is when the students who organize their efforts among themselves. In short, it is in group structure. It's so different to the other statement. So in this case, in the cooperative learning, students are divided into groups, and the teacher assigns specific roles and tasks to each teacher students. And so it's a teacher structure activity. Okay, so while collaborative learning is a voluntary activity, wherein those students who genuinely interest can participate, a cooperative learning is a compulsory activity for all the students who are present in the classroom, and so they have to participate to reach the goal. Okay, so in cooperative learning, group members are given a section of a problem to solve. For instance, they each have to work on their section and provide solutions to solve the large problem. And for this, they need to study, do their research, and then share their data with others, helping them understand what they did and how. Okay, so you can find some different examples. The first one is about the think per sure. This activity involves a three-step cooperative structure. Okay, this is in the case of a cooperative learning. Okay. And step one, individuals think silently about the question posed by the instructor. Step two, individuals pour up the change thoughts. Step three, the peers share their response with other peers and other teams or entire group. And the other one is about the 3 minutes review. Class is divided into groups. The teacher explains a concept. After the teacher explanation, students discuss the different concepts among themselves, asking and answering questions with the group. At the end of the 3 minutes, the group share what they have been able to understand from the concept of explain, right? So in the case of collaborative learning, group members must work on individual tasks and develop their ideas into concrete solution and combine their work with others in the group. And for the project to be successful, the parts must come together as a whole, and one person fails at their job, and the rest will face a challenge as well. So, in the case of collaborative learning activities, you can use the listening triangles, and the students work together in a group of three: speaker, questioner, and note taker. And the speaker explain the topic or opinions as desired by the teacher. And the questioner listens carefully and talks for clarification or further detail. And the note taker observes this process and provides feedback to both the speaker and questioner. And the number two, snowballing. Students discuss or investigate an issue in pairs, and the pairs then join another pair to form of a group of four and share their findings. So the small groups then join together to make a large group, like 3 or 4 or 8 or 16 whole classes. Okay, so if you want to make this kind of activities, you can take this information in consideration when you group students. The first one plays the early stage bilingual learners where peers who can provide good models of English and establish a type of behavior that will be expected from learning from them to benefit most from this type of activities and ensure that everyone is clear what their role is. And bear in mind that group discussions must take place in English and not in the learner's first language, or ensure the tests are sufficiently challenging and will provide a genuine need for discussion, problem solving, and working together. Okay, so you can find some differences between collaborative learning and cooperative learning. So the collaborative learning refers to the educational and teaching method in which group of students work together to solve a problem, or create a product, or develop understanding, or complete a task. And on the other hand, cooperative learning is an effective teaching method in which students work together in small groups, and each students' abilities are different, and a number of activities are used to improve the students' understanding of the subject. So as collaborative learning, in the case of collaborative learning, is student-centered, then the possibility of learning is live with the students, and the teacher may not be there to guide and monitor the students, whereas in cooperative learning, it is the responsibility of both teacher and students to carry out learning activities, and so it is teacher-centered. And the case of collaborative learning is a philosophy of interaction in which the learners are responsible for their learnings as well as respect the ability and the contribution of the fellow. In contrast, the cooperative learning is a structure of interaction that is meant to assist in the attainment of goals by way of working together in groups. And this, the teacher helps the groups in reaching the goal. And while collaborative learning is the best for adult and measure the students' cooperative learning is appropriate for youth from young school-going children. Okay, so you can find another strategies of collaborative learning. As you can hear, the thinker shared that is a problem is presented before the students by the teacher with it associate with the high order thinking abilities like analyze, synthesis, and evaluation and construction. The other one is about the catch-up. In this method, at the time of taking the lecture, the teacher stops suddenly and asks the students to compare their notes with those of other students and ask questions if or any on the full points for clarification. The other one is about the fishbowl debate. Three groups of learners are formed, and the group of the right side is on support of the topic, and while the group sitting on the left is against it. Another one is about the case study. 5 to 6 case study proposals are prepared by the teacher with the similar levels or difficulty. The proposals are assigned to different groups, and the groups are provided proper for the time or for the analysis. And the team-based learning, learners are divided into various groups by the teacher, and a particular task is assigned to them. And once the task is completed, they need to appear in an examination at group level, like, for example, a quiz. Okay. So, the communicative approach. Okay, so let me start with this. Let me change that. Okay. So you can find important aspects inside the reading. Number 1, definition, examples of cooperative learning activities in the ESL or EFL classroom. Examples of collaborative learning activities in the ESL or EFL classroom, and take this into consideration when grouping students. Some different aspects that you have to take in consideration at the moment to make this kind of activities, okay? Reading number 2, the communicative approach. So the communicative approach is based on the idea that learning language successfully comes throughout having to communicate real meaning. When learners are involved in real communication, their natural strategies for language acquisition will be used, and this will allow them to learn to use the language. So with this information, let me share with you the second and last video for the class. Wait me some seconds, please. The communicative approach.
The communicative approach. This is also known as communicative language teaching, or CLT. This is a teaching approach that highlights the importance of real communication for learning to take place. It is based on the idea that learning language successfully comes through having to communicate real meaning. When learners are involved in real communication, their natural strategies for language acquisition will be used. One of the best examples is when the teacher ignites the skill of the students to ask and formulate questions by asking personal information about their classmates. This stimulates meaningful communication among the students. Activities guided by the communicative approach are characterized by trying to produce meaningful and real communication at all levels. As a result, there may be more emphasis on skills than systems. Lessons are more learner-centered, and there may be use of authentic materials. communicative approach aimed at developing the learner's competence to communicate in the target language with an enhanced focus on real-life situations. There are some key features of this approach. First, lessons have communicative aims. Communicating meaning is the main goal in CLT, and language is seen as a tool for learners to reach this aim. For this reason, the syllabus of courses that adopt a communicative approach to teaching favor lesson aims that will help students practice and develop their linguistic competence. Next, teacher acts as a facilitator in the learning process. In this approach, learners are at the center of instruction. That means that the teacher's role has changed when compared to previous methodologies such as audiolingualism and the direct method. The teacher is now seen as a facilitator in the learning process, and some of the responsibilities attributed to them are fluency and accuracy practice. In order to help learners improve their communicative competence, it is important to provide a range of practice activities. Although the ultimate aim is genuine communication, there is room for activities and exercises that ensure students practice language in a more controlled manner, focusing on the development of accuracy. This should not, however, be the only source of language practice. Activities that focus on the development of fluency are a vital part of a communicative approach lesson. Why? Because these activities give learners the opportunity to communicate meaning. Again, the very highlight of this approach is it enables students to interact in order to communicate meaning. As the teacher is not the center of instruction anymore, activities in the communicative approach usually favor student-to-student interaction and maximizes learners' opportunities to speak. Activities such as role plays, information gap activities, jigsaw activity, and open-ended discussion and debates can be used to provide learners with practice of the language. The level of support given might vary depending on the stage of the lesson aim, as well as the student's level of ability. So in a nutshell, this approach, the communicative approach or the communicative language teaching, focuses or highlights or magnifies the importance of real communication for learning to take place.
Okay, so the communicative approach is based on the idea that learning a language successfully comes throughout having to communicate real meaning, as you know. In the communicative approach, real communication and interaction is not only the objective of learning, but also the means throughout which it takes place. This approach started in the 70s and became appointment as it proposed an alternative to other approaches with such as the audio linguistical method, or that means that instead of focus on the acquisition of grammar and vocabulary, and the communicative approach, I aim at developing the learner's competence to communicate in the target language with an enhanced focus on real life situations. So in the communicative approach, the teacher acts as a facilitator in the learning process, as the students are the center of instruction. That means that the teacher's role has changed when compared to previous methodologies such as the audiolinguism and the direct method, and the teacher is not seen as facilitator in the learning process, And some of the responsibilities attributed to them are. So the first one is when creating opportunities for communication or keeping the students motivated or creating a welcoming and safe environment or giving instructions and organizing activities and monitoring learning, providing our constructive feedback. So to help students improve their communicative competence, it is important to provide a range of activity or practice activities. Also, the ultimate aim is genuine communication. There is room for activities and exercise that ensure students practice language in a more controlled manner, focused on the development of accuracy. So activities focus on development of fluency are a bit of oral communication approach lessons as they give learners the opportunity to communicate meaning. And because the teacher is not the center of instruction anymore, activities of communicative approach usually focus on students or students interaction that maximize opportunities to speak. For example, or different activities that you can put in practice inside your classroom is a role plays, the information gap, and the jigsaw or open-ended. In the case of the role play, the students are put in an imaginary situation and are asked for to perform a different role or act themselves in a particular scenario. And the information gap activities, the students talk to each other and find out missing information they need to perform a certain task. In the case of the jigsaw, students perform different tasks at the same time and later share what they have done with their peers. And the last one, open-ended discussions and debates. These are useful for fluency practice. Okay, so in the 17th, the communicative approach branched out into different approaches and methodologies that aim at helping learners develop their communicative competence. Some of this approach are the project-based learning, the task-based learning, and context-based learning instructions, and the ELT, okay, as a reference. So, the teacher acts as facilitator in the learning process. Okay, in the communicative approach, learners are the center of instruction. That means that the teacher role has changed when compared to previous methodologies such as audio linguism. And the teacher is now seen a facilitator in the learning process, and some of the responsibilities attributed to them are sharing the communicative context of lesson, managing learning and creating opportunities for communication, maintain learning motivation, establishing a welcome and safe environment, and giving instructions and setting activities, and monitoring learning and providing constructive feedback. Okay, so it's important to talk about the fluency and accurate practice. In order to help learners improve their communicative competence, it is important to provide a range of practice activities. Also, the ultimate aim is genuine communication. There is room, activities, and exercise that ensure students practice language in more controlled manner, focusing on the development of accuracy. And this should not, however, be the only source of language practice. Activities that focus on the development of fluency are a vital part of communication approach lessons, as they give learning to communicate meanings. Okay, so activities that we can use, the role plays, as you know, the information gap, the jigsaw, the open-ended discussion, and development of the communication or communicative approach. And the project-based learning task, the based learning, content-based learning. Okay, so with this part, let me share with you the practice that we have to develop for this class. Okay, so let me find it for you. Okay, so in this part you have to answer those questions. And the first one is, what is cooperative learning? Number two, what is collaborative learning? Number two, mention and explain the collaborative learning activities in the ESO or EFO classroom. Mention and explain the collaborative learning activities in the ESO or EFO classroom. And what is communicative approach in number five? Number six, mention and explain the activities that you can apply in the communicative approach. And the last one, mention some approaches that you can apply in the communicative approach. So the first one, what is cooperative learning? Okay, so a cooperative learning is when the student times are divided into groups and the teacher assigns specific roles and tasks to the teacher, students, or to each student. And so it's a teacher structured and activity. In the case of the collaborative, what is the collaborative learning? The students who are organize their efforts among themselves. So they are work in structures, in different structures and groups, okay? Mention and explain the collaborative learning activities in the ESL or EFL classroom. Okay. So in the case of the cooperative learning activities in the ESL or EFL, you can find a think per share. These activities involve a three-step cooperative structure. The first one, the individual thinks silently about the question posed by the instructor. Number two, individuals pair up and exchange thoughts. Number three, step three, or number three, the first share their responses with other pairs, other teams, or entire group. The other one is about the 3 minutes review. The first one, class is divided into groups. The second one, the teacher explain a concept, or after the teacher explanation, students discuss the concept name on themselves or asking and answering questions within the group. At the end of the 3 minutes, the group share what they have been able to understand from the concept explained. The case of the activities in the collaborative learning in the ESL or EFL classroom, the first one is the listening triangles. And students work together in group of three, a speaker, a questioner, and note taker. And the role of the speaker is to explain the topic or opinion as directed by the teacher, and the questioner listens carefully and asks for clarification or further detail, and the note taker observe this process and provide feedback to both speaker and questioner. And the other one is about the snowballing, and the students is taught or investigate an issue in pairs, and the person then join another pair to form a group of four and share their findings. So the small groups then join together to make a large group of 2 or 4 or 8 or 16 for class. Okay. Number 5. What is the communicative approach? Wait 1 second, please. Okay. So the communicative approach it's not the only objective, but the means of it takes the place, no? So that means that instead of focus on the acquisition of grammar and vocabulary and the grammatical or linguistic competence, and the communicative approach aims developing of the learning competence to communicate in the target language. In the case of the communicative competence with an enhanced focus on real life situation. Mention and explain activities that she can apply in the communicative approach. Okay. Let me find it. Please. Okay. Okay, so you can take the activities like role plays, and the students are given an imaginary situation and are asked to perform a different role or act as themselves in a particular scenario, or the information gap activities when the students talk to each other and find out missing information they need to perform a certain task, or the jigsaw. The students perform different tasks at the same time and later share what they have done with their peers, and open-ended discussion and debates there are useful for fluency practice. Okay, and mention some approaches that you can apply in communicative approach. And after its beginning in the 70s, the communicative approach branched out into different approaches and methodologies that aim at helping learners develop the communicative competence. And the different approach or some approach that you can put it or that you can apply in the communicative approach are the project-based learning, the task-based learning, the content-based instruction, or the document ELT. Okay. So wait me some seconds. Okay. Let me see them. Okay. Okay. So cooperative, let me talk about the collaborative and cooperative, and then we'll not finish to talk about it. Talk about the approach, the communicative approach. Okay, so in the case of collaborative and cooperative, the collaborative learning is a cultural practice to promote throughout your organization. It's an integral part of building an organization-wide learning culture and can be used in all kind of situations, from casual meetings to company or different activities that you can put in practice inside your classroom. Okay, and the cooperative learning is one of the many tools available in your collaborative learning toolkit. Okay, it's most useful in formal learning context when you want to, in different cases or different situations that you want to put in practice, and you can see an employee to collaborate in structural group exercise, or if you want to apply it in the classroom, you can put in practice, okay? And cooperative learning can help you make learning situations like live training events and onboarding exercise more engaging, and help participants learn the materials more effectively. Okay, so in the case of the cooperative learning exercise, you can find some different exercises that you can put in practice in your classroom with your students. As you can hear the thing for sure, the jigsaw, round robin. Round robin is a format where each participant takes a turn for speaking, usually by doing around the room or classroom and sharing their thoughts one after the other or building on what previous speakers have said. Okay, So the round robin helps make brainstorming sessions more structured on shares that everyone gets an equal chance to participate. And the talking shift is each participant gets the same number of shifts at the start of the discussion. And every time the learners speak, they surrender a shift. And talking shifts are another tool to make sure everyone participates equally and gets a chance to speak. And the last one, the peer review, is when the participants pair up to give each other feedback on assignments or peer review help the student develop critical thinking skills and proven the quality of the work they submit. Okay. So, wait a second, please. Okay, let me find it. Okay. So with this information, I consider that you can solve all the activities in the platform. Okay. So let me conclude the presentation. So remember, you can find some important aspects of the reading, the definition, the development of the communicative approach. Okay. Okay, some success because they are designed to, but mass success because they are determined to by Henry Van Dyke. Okay. So with this information, remember that you have to complete the assignments on the platform and you have to complete all the forms. Remember, if you have any question and any doubt, you can put in the consultation forums. And I think that is all for today. Have a nice weekend and see you in the next class. Bye.
Profe, muchas gracias. Les deseo un feliz fin de semana y hasta la próxima. Gracias, profe. Bendiciones.